Okay, so we are going to start new tutorial series which is Express.js. So Express is a Node.js based web framework which is typically used for the backend web service development, and it is very powerful, and you can write very massive scale backend services very easily. And Express is built on top of the Node.js, as I said before, and it helps for manage your servers and routings. So why we are using Express.js? Basically, it's very time efficient, it's very fast, uh, because Express is written from Node.js, and the Node.js is written from JavaScript. So JavaScript is a very lightweight, single-threaded programming language. So your backend services will run instantly and without costing uh, many resources. And it's economical, which means a lot of packages and libraries that you're going to use to build your backend services will be free. Therefore, you don't need to pay uh, to build your applications. And it's very easy to learn. And uh, the Express applications are typically built as asynchronous fashion, which means the backend services or backend processes won't be wait for the IO request, which means the multiple processes you can process simultaneously without wasting your resources. So basically, those are the main features or main usages of Express.js. And when you are moving forward, you will see how those stuff happen practically. And this is the course outline. So in the very beginning, we are going to do introduction to backend development and RESTful API design, and how asynchronous functions are working, and how to set up Express backend for your backend services. And then we are going to look at how to connect database systems like MongoDB, and how to perform error handling, how to do authentication and authorization, and data sanitization and security is again a very important task. So we will going to look into that as well. And as final steps, we are going to look at GitHub version controlling, because obviously if you are working on a huge project, most probably there will be multiple people working on that specific project. So you have to have a proper version controlling of your code. Therefore, we are going to use GitHub as well. And finally, we are going to do the deployment and production. So in this tutorial series, we are going to use render web service to do our deployment because of its free and easy to use. So those are the course outline, and when we are going forward, we will see how we are going to cover those stuff. Okay, so as an introduction, let's look at the client-server architecture. So basically, client-server architecture is pretty much a straightforward architecture, where you have a client in the one side, and on the other side you have the server. Okay, so in this side, basically this is client. So client have several web browsers, and in the server side, basically you have several components. Uh, anyway, so first client will initiate a request, and server will process it. Then it will respond back. So this entire request response lifecycle is managed by HTTP protocol, where all the data will be transported as by following this protocol. So in the server side, basically we can identify two components, the front end and the back end. So these front end and back end may exist on single server, or maybe they exist on multiple different servers. However, front end is basically a graphical unit of your application, and backend is basically the processing unit, where it processes all the user data and handle all of this persistent management as well, stuffs as well. And once client requests for a specific web page, basically what server do is it render that specific web page and response back to the user. So in the user's end, the web browser will render back the web page, and that way the entire cycle will happen again and again. So that's the basic understanding about basic explanation about client server architecture. And by using this client server architecture, we can expose a REST API as our backend, which means let's say in our backend we have several services that we need to be used. So what we can do is basically we are exposing a REST API to access those functions. So basic HTTP protocol support these get, post, put and delete methods. So what we are trying to do here is we are overriding or we are using these standard HTTP method to access our backend functions. So REST API is basically exposing those functions to the outside. Then clients can initiate the request and server can initiate the response back to the users. So these REST APIs either they are public or private. So public REST API is basically exposed to any user in the outside, so they can access those resources. But the private APIs are basically protected routes, which means in order to access those routes or functions, the users needs to be authenticated and authorized. So once they are authenticated and authorized, they can access the resources. Then likewise, the server can process those stuff and respond back to the user. So if there are any data that is going to be persistent on the backend, those will be persist on those corresponding database systems. So in our case, let's say it is MongoDB, right? So that is the basic infrastructure of the backend. So this entire backend framework is we are going to written by using Express.js. And if there exists any front-end components, we can use maybe React or Angular or any other stuff. But in this tutorial series, what we are going to focus is back-end component.